Do you guys like impressions?
Let's talk about impressions.
I think John Mulaney is my true one.
I'm John Mulaney. I'm on Jimmy Kimmel, and I'm loving it.
Right. Yeah, I give me a frappuccino. I get a frappuccino and a bagel with cream cheese.
Mr. Soderbergh, today's scene I think would be a good opportunity for me to take my shirt off.
Now, using voices has been a part of comedy since forever. You know, stand-up is twofold. You have to be able to write a good joke, but you also have to be able to perform that joke. Some comedians are a lot better at one than they are at the other, and hopefully a good comedian is good at both. You need both of those skills, and frankly, those aren't often complementary skill sets, right? Some comedians really base their whole routine 99% on one and hope that it's so good it carries into the other. Honestly, sometimes the absence of one is a part of it. For example, comedians like Stephen Wright, who have a very minimalistic, monotone delivery.
There's a fine line between fishing and just standing on the shore like an idiot.
He's made that a part of his routine. It's the absence of something creating itself, which is pretty cool. Now, let's really get into the weeds here. Let's talk about impressions specifically. True blue party trick impressions. This is what you'll see when a B-list celebrity is on a late night show and they have nothing to talk about, but damn, they do a really good impression of someone.
Reading to preschoolers. Puff the Magic Dragon.
And sometimes they're really fun, and sometimes they're a little bit more nuanced. Of course, you have your classics.
Oh my. We're out of soy milk.
You know, Robbo, now I have one for every decade.
We're sitting here like a couple of regular fellas.
And then you have people with some more kind of nuanced, deeper cut impressions that make you realize, oh wow, that person does have that weird tick, or that person does do that weird vocal thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a good, yeah, he does well. He does Will Smith well as well. He's really good. The kid is good. How old is he? He's 22. What? He's 22. Get the hell out of here.
You know, it's really easy for a lot of people to do an impression of someone once there is an impression of them out there. It's less about the skill of finding out what is this person's nuances and ticks. It's just more about, oh, what is it easy to exaggerate? A good example of this is Owen Wilson. A few years ago, no one was doing impressions of Owen Wilson, even though he was still his weird, eccentric self. Someone figured out how to do a good Owen Wilson, and now everyone can do it, and the touchstone of that impression is just that
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Is that wow that is just fun to do, and you can see it now everywhere.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, wow, it's Owen Wilson, yeah. Wow.
But let's talk about integrated impressions. This is when a comedian is really good at doing a voice, and instead of just stopping the momentum and saying, now I'm going to do an impression of this person, they integrate it into a story or a bit. A great example of that is Eddie Murphy from his special Raw, where he talks about Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor.
You cannot say filth, flarn, filth in front of people.
And I never said no filth, flarn, filth.
Tell him I said, suck my I said, do the people laugh when you say what you say? I said, yes. He said, do you get paid? I said, yes. He said, well, tell Bill. I said, have a Coke and a smile and shut the up.
Right? Bo Burnham used to talk about how playing music in comedy is kind of cheating because you can play a chord and make someone feel something, and it's kind of fast-tracking your way into their emotions. If you had to only use your words to make them feel something, it's going to take a lot longer, and it might take a little more kind of articulation and prowess to be able to bore into someone's heart in the same way that you can play a minor chord and do it pretty immediately. Humans are fascinating that way. But impressions are the same. If you can do an impression of someone, it can be very transportive. The best modern example of transportive impressions has to be Maria Bamford, whose impressions are so good they're a little bit scary.
Honey, we're just going camping in Michigan with your cousins. I will not be dashed upon the rocks by your siren song.
The comedian that I want to highlight in today's episode is a comedian by the name of James Adomian, who I think is using impressions in an amazing way and I think kind of breathing new life into this art form. I would love to see more comedians using this particular tool in their comedy arsenal.
And you do a lot of impressions. Is that something you started doing as a young lad?
Yeah. It used to be towards unfair targets, like teachers and coaches, just poor people who happen to have the misfortune of being in front of smart-ass kids. I'm always looking for somebody who's like already themselves kind of a caricature.
Yeah.
So I just come in and it's just easy.
What if I just did that? What if I just did that for my set? I did impressions of other comedians, and now I do Douglas. A comedian died in New York City tonight. I don't know which is worse, that or the cheeseburger sliders.
I'm at home here. I'm curled up on a stool. I'm at home here, but I'm uncomfortable.
And you have delved into things, Tompkins. There's really not many words that happen. I'm not even 21.
Yeah, hey, Todd, it's Louie.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm fat.
You're what?
And I'm a piece of shit.
Dear Diary, today is the very, very best day of my life. That's because Sean winked at me and blew me a kiss. Next week is the big dance, and I know we're gonna be in love forever and ever. I'll say that again. Next week is the big dance, and I know we're gonna be in love forever and ever.
He does these really fun and nuanced impressions, and then also some crazier ones that you're probably gonna hear. He's also incredibly famous for his impression of Bernie Sanders that was everywhere during the 2016 election year.
Millennials, you've heard of them. They love avocados. They eat them for every meal. They buy them instead of houses.
But let's look at an example of integrated impressions in James Adomian's stand-up. And one of his best moments to this end is his bit about gay villains.
I don't know why I love the archetype of the gay villain. That's why I consciously dress like one with my thin mustache, which tells you, something must be afoul. A lot of villains are gay, but they can't just come out and say like, hey, the bad guy's a f***it, watch out for him. They have to hint at it that way. Like, here's my perfumed calling card. This is my curious associate, Raoul. Our relationship need not be specified. Raoul, fetch the murdering slippers.
This is so much more than just someone doing a slew of impressions. He's telling a story and he's pointing out a trend that people don't talk about enough. All good stand-up kind of often starts from that germ of like, hey, there's something I'm noticing that no one else is noticing. A lot of good jokes start with that. They're little discoveries. They're like little incongruous babies. So James Adomian found something and found a way to use his skill set to exploit it the best that he could. And he is more adept at telling this style of joke than, say, another comedian because he can take you directly into that character.
My favorite gay villain is anytime you've ever seen a Robin Hood movie, the Sheriff of Nottingham is always a fabulous fop cloaked in furs who's like, bring me this Robin of Roxley and make him, oh yes, make him kneel before me.
So, sometimes impressions are party tricks, sometimes they are character studies, sometimes they're straight up mockery.
You know how I do Barrymore impression? I love Jimmy Fallon. I have my own makeup line. Oh my god, am I being so mean? I love her. You know she's my favorite. No.
But sometimes they can be used to tell a story. They can be used to punch up. They can be used to highlight something in society that people aren't paying enough attention to. And they can be used simply to augment your stand-up comedy. So I implore comedians to pay attention to comedians like James Adomian and to not be afraid of, again, expanding that tool belt. It doesn't have to be trite, it doesn't have to be tacky, it doesn't have to be your uncle thinking he does an amazing Christopher Walken impression. It can be a part of art and craft. And there's always room for that in stand-up comedy. Okay, That's the video for today. I hope you guys go out and watch some James Adomian. He is incredible, and if you're a comedy fan, you're sure to see some of your favorites popping up in his material. Subscribe, like, comment, all of that. I'm really enjoying this series, highlighting comedians who are doing underappreciated things right now in stand-up comedy. And I will see you all again soon. Thank you so much. Bye.